Now, recent positive changes in Zimbabwe and Angola serve as proof of what enlightened leadership can accomplish in Africa. That's the word of newly appointed U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Tibor Nagy. Nagy is the former ambassador to Ethiopia and Guinea. He's also held several diplomatic posts in Southern and West Africa. Africa 54's Hayde Adams-FitzPatrick sat down with him in New York to talk about the future of America's relationship with Africa. She began by asking him whether the U.S. is satisfied with developments in the Democratic Republic of Congo ahead of the elections there in December.
Oftentimes, it's assumed that the United States supports opposition candidates in all of these African elections. The absolute truth is, and I can't underline this strongly enough, that the United States has no candidates in any election. Our only candidate is always the process. As long as the process is fair, transparent, and the elections are credible. This is what we would like to see. I think this is what most of the international community would very much like to see, that the people of the DRC have a choice, a real choice in electing their next leader.
Are you happy with what you're seeing so far?
Let me put it this way. I have gone from being pessimistic to being more agnostic. Oftentimes, unfortunately, people are focused on the day of the elections. And often the day of the elections go off fine, but the pre-electoral period is critically important to make sure that all eligible voters are allowed and have a chance to register. And of course, in the post-electoral period as to how that unfolds, and to make sure that the right person is inaugurated who was elected by the people.
Let's move now to Zimbabwe, where we have actually had an election, and we have seen the transfer of power from one individual to another, albeit within the same party. The United States, along with the international community, were instrumental in, really through international sanctions, isolating Robert Mugabe's Zimbabwe. It seems that change appears to be on the horizon. So what is the United States willing now to do to help rebuild Zimbabwe and help it reintegrate into the family of prosperous nations?
We sure hope that real change is on the horizon, because the fact is that Zimbabwe could be one of the stars of Africa. There's almost not a sector that Zimbabwe could not excel at. What is key now is real action. The legislation and sanctions against Zimbabwe are quite specific, and also specific in what needs to be done to, again, open up that space. If these steps come into being, then I would become a huge cheerleader with the U.S. business sector to say, absolutely, you know, this has happened now, so look at Zimbabwe as a possibility for investment, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be any amount of international development assistance that will move a country from, you know, low income developing to middle income. It's going to be foreign direct investment. We see that over and over again, you know, throughout the world, because there's massive amounts of international capital looking for good places to invest. But for that, the business community needs transparency. They need to know that it's a corruption-free environment and that they can get a fair return on their investment.
Speaking of more change, almost sort of the same that we're seeing in Zimbabwe, another example of transfer of power from one individual to another within the same party in Angola. President Dos Santos virtually handpicked João Lorenzo, and he's been on a rather aggressive anti-corruption drive. Is there a pathfinder here? Is there a lesson for the rest of Africa?
Absolutely. And that shows you the difference literally that one leader can make, because the Angolans have taken some steps, you know, especially on the corruption front. And if investors are very sophisticated, especially those investors who are looking at developing markets like Africa. If the investors are beating down the door to go to a country, that is definitely a very positive signal. Whether it's a new leader who takes these steps or somebody who's been in the system for a long time, when they're taking proven positive steps, as has happened, Angola's one of the examples, then the business community responds immediately. You know, formalized organizations, whether it's a government or other large organizations, may take time. But for the business community, you know, responding quickly is their lifeblood. So it's a very good indication of the positive changes going on in Angola.
Now, on Thursday, we'll bring you part 2 of Hayde's interview with U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Nagy on the wave of changes in Ethiopia, America's relationship with Nigeria, and China's growing presence in Africa. So be sure to join us.